Hare Krishna. Oh, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Very glad to have this opportunity to be with all of you during the extended National Council. I would much rather be there physically instead of digitally, but circumstances are such that we have to rely on this technology. And at least I'm grateful that we have the technology working today so that I can speak to all of you. I am assuming that right after I'm finished, you'll probably begin your Srimad Bhagavatam class. Although maybe some of you are thinking that this is Srimad Bhagavatam class, but I will not be speaking that long. But it's definitely nice to see as the camera is panning across the screen, so many devotees there. It seems to be a very substantial gathering, and which is good. It gives me an opportunity to speak to a lot of you all at once, something I've been hankering for, something I missed last year at the Bhakti Sangama Festival. It seems like something I will also miss this year, but hopefully it won't happen again next year, and I will be there with all of you at even a larger gathering. I do not have a planned talk I wanted to speak about this morning, but I did receive the agenda that was prepared in advance for all of those of you who are attending. And I have taken note of all the agenda topics which are being presented, all of them relevant, especially, all of them are relevant, but even including the Vedic view of the nature of time is definitely very relevant, because Krishna says, I am time. And all of us are under the influence of time, and nobody can deny it. So it's very good also to know about time, and especially from the Vedic view. So that is an important presentation. But I see others that are very important also, such as serving the elderly in difficult life situations. Very important. I also see that there's a presentation on ahimsa standards. I am reminded of a conversation I had just 2 weeks ago with the Minister of Agriculture, Kalakanta Prabhu, and I was speaking to one devotee who I've known ever since he was a young child from America, who is very much a strong advocate of ahimsa, dairy farming. And we had a very long discussion on this topic. And I was reminded of a commitment that we made in 2019 in Magdalenovka for all the temples to actually come to that standard, at least in the deity worship, of using only ahimsa milk products for deity worship. So that is an important topic to be discussed, ahimsa standards. Vanaprastha ashram, very relevant. Even just recently, I was in a Zoom conversation with some devotees, and one devotee was appealing to me to help him understand how to move into this stage in his life. He saw that it was something that was very relevant to him, and he felt it was relevant to his service. And so there are many devotees in similar situations, but how to apply it, this is also something which I'm sure you will be discussing. Child protection, who can deny that this is such a very important topic? It comes up practically every year in our GBC discussions, the topic of child protection in our movement. And not only just protection of children, but protecting them also means protecting their faith, and not just protecting them from physical, emotional harm, but protecting their faith also. And physical and emotional harm can certainly be destructive to their faith if they see it in any way connected to their experience of Krishna consciousness. So please, very important topic. Take advantage of this, discuss it, and try to understand how to improve it and achieve certain goals in our temples in the Ukraine. I see there is also a discussion about accountants meeting. That's also very important. As Prabhupada used to say, that the Lakshmi that was used especially for maintaining his temples and for book distribution was like his lifeblood for book publication. So proper accounting is required, especially when our temples are very much connected to distribution of books, which I assume is very relevant to many centers. Now, with that brief introduction, I want to say that the topic which I haven't talked about yet, and the reason why I haven't talked about it yet, is the topic I want to speak the most on. And that is about worshiping the deities. And you may ask, why is it that I want to speak the most on this topic? It's not because I've seen or observed or heard about any particular neglect of worshiping the deities, but it just so happens it's been a topic I have been very much absorbed in recently because of my studies of Brihad Bhagavatamrita. And although I have not been able to give classes because of my health for about a month now, we ended speaking about every day, at least maybe 8 or 9, 10 classes from a section of Brihad Bhagavatamrita about worshiping the deity. And I wanted to share with all of you at least my realizations, some realizations, more I would have to say, just reflection on the words of Srila Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and also as spoken by Narada Muni to Gopakumara about worshiping the deities, and especially about the necessary consciousness for worshiping the deities. I see here there are several topics: making jewelry and clothes for the deities, dressing the deities, and general worship of the deities in the temple. I couldn't think of a topic which is more in the forefront of my mind than these topics, and that's why I wanted to take them from my mind and bring them to you, and in a hope that somehow it will encourage you and inspire you to focus on this, again, in the right consciousness. That's why Srila Prabhupada established deities in the temples for the purpose of bringing devotees to the right consciousness. And not only somehow did I have the opportunity to connect this to Brihad Bhagavatamrita, but somehow my Brihad Bhagavatamrita was very intimately connected to my recent reading of the book called I Will Build You a Temple, and a book written by Giriraj Maharaj about Srila Prabhupada's establishing the Juhu Temple in Bombay. And after reading that book, I finished it some time ago, but I was left with such a deep impression. I mean, I don't want to sound like Anyways, I was so moved, I was moved to tears. Let's put it that way. I was moved to tears by reading how much Srila Prabhupada had the consciousness described by Sanatana Goswami and Narada Muni in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita when he established the Juhu temple in Bombay. Prabhupada's focus was there's no way this temple, despite all the obstacles he had to undergo, there's no way this temple is not going to be built as long as I have breath in this body. That was Prabhupada's mood. But why was that his mood? Because he brought Radha Rasa Bihari there as soon as they acquired the land. He installed them there. He began the worship of them there. And even when the temporary temple was being destroyed, the devotees were making such big sacrifices, such personal sacrifices to continue their worship under the most amazing conditions. Why? Because Prabhupada told Radha Rasa Bihari, I will build you a temple. And no matter where Srila Prabhupada was in the world, whether he was in Africa, whether he was in America, wherever he was in the world, because of his promise to Radha Rasa Bihari and his meditation upon their pleasure, he was ready to make personal sacrifices unimaginable. And the devotees witnessed those personal sacrifices. And by witnessing those personal sacrifices, they understood the importance of their own sacrifices. Why? Because, as Narada Muni says in Brihad Bhagavatamrita, that the proper worship of the deity forms, wherever he may be manifest, is to worship them as non-different from Krishna. That is perfect, the most exalted form of worship. And Narada Muni explains that when one worships in that consciousness, one achieves the most exalted perfection of devotional service. He explained this, and then Gopakumara asked Narada Muni that, why is it that it seems to be there's some discrepancy in statements in scripture? Why is it that somehow there's some statements which are made which almost make the worshipers of the deities to be in an inferior position to those who are engaged directly in service to the Lord? Could you please explain how is it possible that you're saying it is the highest, most exalted standard of service to the Lord, but scriptures say, verses in the Bhagavatam and the Puranas and other places, that such worshipers are on a lower platform? What does that mean? And then Narada Muni went on to explain that actually the reason why such statements are given in Shastra is because they're applied to those who don't worship the deities in the right consciousness, who don't see the deities as non-different from the Supreme Lord, who don't see Krishna's presence in the heart of all living beings, who don't respect Vaishnavas, and therefore they are Kanishtas, who don't respect other living entities, which is also the symptom of a Kanishta. For them, the worship of the deity is necessary because why? And then Narada Muni goes on to explain in a very wonderful way, too detailed for me to possibly cover in this short talk. But he explains, but that even those who don't worship the deities in the right consciousness, even those who don't give proper respect to Vaishnavas, even those who don't give proper respect to other living entities, they should at least know the standard is to see the deity as non-different from the Lord. And by so doing that, if they remain steady in their worship over time, and the point of the emphasis emphasizes it takes some time. Whereas those who worship in the right consciousness, for them, because they're in the right consciousness, they are assured to be able to experience the most exalted status of prema bhakti in their method of worship, because they see, even, he says, even those who worship forms other than the deities, he even says, even if one worships a blade of grass and waters it every day, but if he sees that blade of grass as non-different from the Lord and worships in the right consciousness, because Krishna can manifest himself everywhere as he so chooses, then he will achieve the exalted state of prema bhakti. Generally, we don't see such consciousness, unfortunately. Generally, we see kanishtas who are sectarian in their worship, who are sectarian in their attitudes towards other Vaishnavas and don't give proper respect to other Vaishnavas, who don't give proper respect to other living entities. For them, they're given an opportunity to worship the deity. And in fact, in Srimad Bhagavatam, in the 7th canto, 15th chapter, Narada Muni again there explains that for those who worship the Lord in Satya Yuga, they were actually able to see the Lord present in everyone's heart and give proper respect to everyone. But what happened over time, in this, as Treta Yuga began manifesting and people's consciousness became affected by the influence of Treta Yuga, then in due course of time, the Narada explains that the worship of the deity was established, so that because those who couldn't properly respect the Lord's presence in the hearts of others would then at least learn to give proper respect to the Lord in his form of the deity. Then, of course, in Dwapara Yuga, it became more fully manifest, the worship of the deity. But the point that I wanted to make, and these are all spoken to you from my readings of Brihad Bhagavatamrita, commentaries of Sanatan Goswami, and many other commentaries which I read from. Deity worship can give one the most exalted status, perfection. It is nothing less than any other form of worship if engaged in the right consciousness. And if the right consciousness is there, that means I'm decorating these clothes, I'm making these clothes for the pleasure of the Lord, I'm dressing the Lord for their pleasure, I'm worshiping the deities for their pleasure, I am cooking for their pleasure. Everything I am doing is because they're there, and it is for their pleasure. Cultivate that consciousness. But even if that consciousness is not there, then what Narada Muni says, just stay steady. Just do it. Just do it. And even if you don't have the right consciousness, all perfection will come in due course of time. This is my talk about deity worship, I used Srila Prabhupada's example of his meditation, his perfect consciousness, his example in establishing Radha Rasi Bihari. Of course, Prabhupada established so many deities everywhere. He established Radha Gopi Vallabha in Boston. He established Radha Madhava in Mayapur. He established the Lord to manifest himself and invoke their presence by his service and by his prayers and ask them to please manifest for our benefit. The deities in our temples in Ukraine have also been established for the same purpose, following in the footsteps of Srila Prabhupada. Please, please, please serve them in the right consciousness and be steady. If you're steady and don't even have the right consciousness, you will derive the fruit. It will come. The fruit will come, but it may take more time. This is my talk. I don't know how long I spoke. I don't even remember what time I began. But it's the end of my talk. And I thank you. I hope it was heard. And I hope that the technology worked in such a way that you were able to hear it. If not, hopefully it was recorded if you need to hear it again. But I will end here. Please take advantage of the next few days you have together to absorb your minds in these various relevant topics, which are all meant to increase our Krishna consciousness together in the association of devotees. I wish I could be there and chant with you. It's my misfortune, but this is second best at this particular point of time. Thank you very much. I will end here. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.